Zero no Tsukaima, or The Familiar of Zero, was based off the light novel series by Noboru Yamaguchi and illustrated by Eiji Yusatsuka. The Familiar of Zero follows the adventures of protagonist Louise and her familiar Saito. Louise is a second-year student at the Tristan Academy of Magic. In this world, those who can use magic are either mages or nobles. Louise is terrible at magic and can never use it the way she wants. She is given the nickname Zero Louise by her classmates for this reason. Early in the school year, the second-year students summon their familiars. This is considered a special ritual where a mage summons their eternal protector and partner, which is usually some sort of magical creature. Louise manages to summon a human commoner named Saito Hiraga, an average Japanese teenager, leaving her totally humiliated. Due to the sacredness of this ritual, Louise is left with no choice but to reluctantly accept Saito as her familiar. One day, Saito challenges a noble who disrespects commoners, Gish, to a duel. Saito is badly beaten at first, but once a sword was put in his hands, he gained a mysterious power in which he used to defeat the noble in the duel. Louise's and Saito's relationship develops during the course of the story. Together they face many mysteries and uncover unexpected truths, including the nature of Saito's mysterious power and the truth behind Louise's inability to cast magic. This was requested by both Silence the Detective and Mutsumi Fruit 3. And if it wasn't requested, I would have never finished it. This is honestly the worst anime I've watched yet. Why do you say that, you ask? Well, let's dive in and start with the premise. Let's just call it what it is and say that Saito is Louise's slave. She makes him sleep on a bed of hay, doesn't feed him very well, and beats him with a whip for little to no reason. And the whipping is supposed to be funny. Maybe it's because I'm an American, but slavery for me is not good comedy fodder. And speaking of comedy, this series is supposed to be a rom-com, which it is, but it's a crappy one. So most of the humor comes from Saito acting like a guy, doing things that all guys do, like looking at girls' breasts, and Louise having a tsundere attack and hurting him physically. But then they have their sweet moments to show that they really like each other, and blah, blah, blah. What makes this crap is that both of them have flat out told the other one that they love them, but they still have to be put through the rom-com paces. They almost freaking got married in one episode. It's ridiculous. What makes the confessions of love null and void is because of some tiny misunderstanding that Louise blows out of proportion. I know she's a tsundere, but she's just flat out not believable as a person. No one ever acts the way she does. Now, cards on the table. There are some tsundere characters that I love and that I think are great characters, but for all of them, they don't push their tsundere qualities past the point of believability. So I just thought Louise's and Saito's relationship was irritating versus thinking it was at all sweet or charming. The relationship and the comedy is completely uniform and cliche, and if there was one thing that annoyed me more about this show than the poorly written romance, it was the plagiarism this series displayed. It pissed me off big time. There's a difference between taking inspiration from another work and then making your own story, and then there's flat out stealing. The Familiar of Zero does the latter. Starting with the main romantic couple, Louise and Saito are pretty much Yuji and Shana from Shakugan no Shana. What makes it worse is that they have the same seiyuu for both parts. Tabitha looks just like and acts quite similar to Yuki Nagato, and Tifa looks and acts very, very similar to Mikuru from Haruhi. Gish is pretty much Tamaki without his honest heart, which is what makes Tamaki truly endearing. The seiyuu to me even sounds like he's trying to do an impression of Mamoru Miyano in that role.
火、水、土、風の4系統です。そしてなんたる奇遇。僕の属性もミセスと同じく土。神は時として、器も中身も完璧な人間を作り出してしまう。
But in English, it sounds like the guy's trying to do an impression of Pegasus from Yu-Gi-Oh!
I don't know what you've been babbling on about, peasant. You are going to create a needless misunderstanding with these ladies.
Oh, I don't want to get into it too much for spoilers, but I imagine Roy Mustang will look like Colbert when he loses all of his hair. And let's not forget the whole Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings world this series is set in the first place. Story devices are also very similar, like Appears to be a rusty piece of junk first, but then becomes awesome when the owner has to fight to protect the tsundere he has special feelings for. Yeah, what was the name of that anime again? That series? It couldn't have possibly come from the most successful female comic book writer of all time. No, it had to be an original idea. There's also a lot of harem cliches in this series, in addition to the shoujo and shonen ones. It's like the guy who created this cut out bits of other scripts of popular anime, glued them together, and filled in the blanks where there were ones, like Mad Libs. But what he forgot to fill in was important bits of the story, like why the hell a frickin' war goes on in the first place.
To be honest, it's something I just came up with on the fly. Pretty impressive, huh? I thought it might make the story more dramatic.
Oh, I see.
I thought that with the war story, the series might be getting into subject matter that it's clearly ill-equipped to deal with, but all we know is that the noble of Albion staged a coup for reasons, and that some guy named Cromwell took over for reasons, who we again see like once in the whole freaking story. And then they attack Tristan for, again, reasons. Do, however, learn that there's a bad guy behind it all. An evil person who uses warring countries for his or her own benefits. I've never seen that before! But unlike FMA, we never learn exactly why the bad guy does what he does, only that he's really, really evil. Was there anything I liked about this show? Yeah, there were characters or two like Colbert, Tabitha, and Annie's who I thought were pretty interesting and well written, even though they were blatant rip-offs of other characters I've seen. I couldn't really bring myself to care about them for that reason. Climaxes of each season were also pretty well written. There wasn't enough build-up to them. The drama is just sort of pressed on the audience. It's not jarring, however, because it's entirely character-based and the show doesn't overreach itself by pretending to be something deeper. But for every interesting character, there's 3 times the amount of badly written ones, and for every satisfying episode, there's a ton of below mediocre writing and fan service to get through. It gets flat out ecchi at some points. To talk about the visuals a little, the animation is average, not really good, not really bad, just average. The voice track in Japanese, I think, is on a similar scale. And I've heard many of the seiyuu in other roles, and most of them have a very long list of credits. But there's only so much good actors can do for a bad story and bad writing. I found Rei Kugimiya cute and funny in the past, but I couldn't get past the fact that Louise is simply a bad character. It was the same for me with Mamiko Noto. I know some of her other work, and the English dub is just horrible. With the exception of Christina Valencia as Louise, the rest of the cast is pretty much flat out unlistenable. It's a cast full of amateurs, and you can really tell. So I give this series a 6 out of 10 because really I can see why other people would enjoy it. The humor is entirely uniform, but there's a reason why it's so common, is because a lot of people like this formula. And I've even liked it myself in some series, even though this series is a half-assed effort to recreate it with a pack of cliched tropes, characters, and plagiarism. Recommendations. You have to be able to stomach a good amount of ecchi, for one, and you have to not mind anime cliches that have been constantly recycled with no real originality. So, Jump fans maybe might like this? Also, you have to be able to turn off your brain. The slavery played as comedy thing wasn't the only offense this series had against my intelligence. Auf Wiedersehen.